You know, I have some different practices that I use in my daily life, things like EFT. So that's emotional freedom technique.
Mm.
And I'll show you guys a little session on how to do some quick tapping that can be helpful. And then also things like energy medicine, and just using a bit of, so these different practices, you can literally do them for like 5 or 10 minutes at a time. And they actually work in a physical and emotional and sort of a spiritual way, that holistic model, which includes all of those together, that can help us to achieve either moving forward and digging in a little bit deeper, or even just some basic coping strategies.
Awesome. So if someone is feeling just kind of completely overwhelmed, where the heck do they start? How do you choose amongst this platter of offerings that you have or that other practitioners have or that we can just Google?
Yeah, so I think sometimes it's a bit of trial and error. You're going to try maybe a few things. There's an abundance of things available to us online, which again can be overwhelming in and of itself when you're already stressed and not sort of knowing where to begin. So I'm going to show you a technique. This is a tapping sequence. And for those that aren't familiar, EFT has been around since the 90s. And it's a really great tool. They sort of call it like an psychological acupressure, if you will. So it's moving energy and it's moving things through the body. So emotions that get stuck, our stress, our feedback loop often has us stuck in a moment or stuck in a reaction. So doing this sequence on its own can actually just help to release some of that stress that we're feeling. So I'm going to walk you really quick through the technique. So we start by tapping on the top of our head, and sort of right into that, the middle of the skull there. And it's a light sort of pressure, but firm enough that you're feeling it. And typically you're going to tap 5 to 7 times, or a full breath for each spot. So that's the crown. Then we move to the eyebrows. And again, it's just sort of on the inside of the eyebrows.
Guys, do this at home too. This is pretty,
Yeah.
I'd love to see how y'all feel with this.
And then you move to the outside of the eye, the temple. And then you move to the cheeks. And you can even just do this with one hand as well, but you're really looking to be on the pads of the fingers. There's no right or wrong. So even, you know, I'm going to show you the sequence, and we move to the chin. But you can just tap in one spot. You may find that you want to sit on a certain area a little bit longer than another. Then we move to the collarbone. So again, one-handed or two-handed. I usually do it two-handed just because I find that I focus a little bit more.
Yeah.
But if one hand is all you got, that's what you do. And then you move to right on the bra strap, so under your arm. And again, you can do it double, or you can just do one side. And then you move, and it's the wrists. So it's sort of like a karate chop. And another spot is right here on the outside of the hand. So the nice thing about EFT is, one, you can just do that tapping sequence. So if you don't add any affirmations or any statements with it, you can just do that. You can take a sort of a check-in and see how you're feeling after doing that. The nice part is that you can take it further. So if you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, you can just do that sequence. Literally it took a few seconds, right? Mm-hmm. You just move through. And then if you want to take it a little bit further, you can add in some statements. So you start by saying, you know, even though I'm feeling stressed, and then you tap on your spot and you move to the next, I deeply love and accept myself. So as you're working through, that's a really easy way to name the emotions that you're feeling, and then you work through using the tapping and the clearing statements. There's lots of different guided sessions online that you can do as well, but tapping has been a tool that I use consistently. I've used it for years, and I also do it with my kids. So again, if they want to watch me do it, sometimes that's okay depending on their age. But it's a pretty cool tool that you can teach kids how to use too.
So how young is too young? I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's never too young, right? Like if they're around and they're seeing you use tools, it's a really great conversation that you can use with them on regulating emotions. And I think kids are always watching and learning. And so they see this is a technique that works or is helpful to you, then it's something that they might be more apt to try, or it gives them tools that they can use as well. So depending on their mood and depending on their age, sometimes they're interested, and sometimes it'll be like they just tap one spot and then they're off doing their own thing. But it's all, it's all good. It works. And I find it's a great parenting tool as well, because they can see me name the emotion that I'm feeling. So if I'm feeling stressed, I'm not necessarily hiding it from them, but it's an opportunity that they can see, okay, it's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel stressed. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. And these are some tools that we can use to overcome it, to process it.
I love that. And what I love from my training is that so many of these points I'm seeing are corresponding with many acupuncture points that I would use for clients that are feeling particularly anxious or stressed. I call them the CTFD, the calm the F down points collectively. So I love that. And a number of the facial points you're doing correspond with points that we'd use for facial rejuvenation acupuncture to help us look younger and energetically lift our faces. The points that we scrunch up when we're kind of pissed off or feeling worried or not paying attention.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of these modalities, correlate to some sort of, traditional modalities or traditional healing techniques. And the nice thing is that obviously with EFT, it's a personal thing that you can do on your own in the comfort of your home, but you can also have a guided session. So again, you can sort of baseline just to use as a coping strategy, and then take it further for healing and to really dive into some deeper issues. It works well for fears, anything that you're feeling.
So with EFT, would you do that acutely? Like if you're right now feeling that overwhelm come up, or you're feeling acutely pissed off, or is that something that you do kind of an ongoing, like you wash your face, brush your teeth, do your tapping?
Yeah, so both. One, when it's coming up. So sometimes even if I'm in, when we were in more social settings, if things come up or different feelings, even under the table, you can be doing just this tapping point, or even if you're sort of in a uncomfortable situation or whatever it is that you're processing, you can easily be tapping through it. But then in a more mindful way, you start incorporating tapping as, again, yeah, it's a part of your ritual of the day. So maybe you get up and you do a tapping sequence. Maybe you start doing tapping multiple times through the day, or even in the morning and before bed, however that might look for you. But definitely adding that as a more intentional part of your day, I think you'll definitely start to see some nice releases, and just knowing that while we can't necessarily take all of the stress away, like obviously the situation that we're in, there's, it has to run its course, but changing how we're processing some of that information, or how we're reacting, we can definitely change that. We can definitely work on making things a little bit easier for ourselves that way.
Oh, fantastic. I love that. EFT is never something that I have done before. I've certainly heard of it, but
Yeah.
I feel like more and more people are turning to lifestyle techniques that they can do, because what else are we going to do right now? And we're realizing that, just taking one supplement's not just going to make this whole thing go away. So we need to have these practical tools. So I love that.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, can you share with us another something that you love that maybe some of our viewers now or on the replay may not have experimented with before, but you find helpful?
Yeah, so I also do something called energy medicine. And again, it has lots of research done with it, and it's been around for a number of years. But just simple techniques. And again, my favorite is the crown pull. And I think this is probably helpful for most people when you're feeling just full, like there's just so much going on in your head. certainly as a new mom or parents where you're just like, you're juggling so many things throughout the day that your brain feels like it's just full. So the crown pull is a great way if you are experiencing some physical like headaches or insomnia or things like that that are happening along with some of your stress responses. Then starting with the crown pull, so you actually start in the middle of your forehead, you press in, and then you pull on either side. And so again, you just sort of work your way up, pressing in and then pulling to the side. And then you go all the way up and around the crown to the back. And then I like to work all my weight like right to the back of the neck and then down even into the shoulders. And sort of take a deep breath after that and just sort of, you might notice even doing a couple of rotations through that at nighttime, especially before bed, you just feel like you made some space just to allow for the clutter to move away. And again, our fingers and our own hands are really healing. I think, getting back to the fact that we do have some power to our bodies are amazing. So allowing yourself to just pull in, create some extra circulation happening through the brain, and getting that spinal fluid pump in. I mean, just it does really, again, it's simple, but it does work, and it is super helpful. So that's my first, the crown pull for the energy medicine. And then the second one is similar to the tapping, but it's called the thymus pump. And so again, just sort of halfway in between. And you just breathe through it and just sort of keep tapping on this point, and you start to feel that percussion move through the body, and your breathing may become a little bit more rhythmic. So this can be really helpful if you just feel tight, like your shoulders are tight, you've been taking a lot of shallow breaths. Just really helps to move that energy down and create a little bit more grounding. So that is another really great one. And then one that I really like to do for myself, but then also if you have your family members and also with kids, this can work great too, is it's a cross pull. So you start on one shoulder, you press down on the shoulder, and you come around the front of your body. So this you can just do on your own. But if you have a partner or some kids, then you can actually do this on each other's backs. So this is really fun. If you have multiple kids, sometimes we line up and do like a train, and then you're crossing back on each other's backs. And it's amazing how much connection of the right and left side of the brain and the body sort of comes back together. And it can be a really fun, easy technique too.
I have never heard of these. This is fantastic, Falon.
Yeah. So I use them for different tools and techniques, different courses and group sessions that I offer. I do obviously postpartum support groups and things, and so sometimes I bring in these modalities. Are a really great way to kind of bring some connection back into the body, and again, it works for bringing that physical and emotional and spiritual connection back in.
Now, is there anybody that these three things, the crown pulling, the thymus tapping, the crossbody, would not be appropriate for?
No, it does work for everybody. And again, it's something that you can try, and maybe if you just don't feel comfortable doing it, or it this doesn't work for you. But I think for most people, when they start, it's just monitoring your expectations. I think that you want to go into it knowing that it might be a coping strategy. Obviously, the more practice that you have with it, the better things work and the easier and the more natural it feels. Like trying anything new might feel a little bit awkward, or it's not going to take the stressors away. So I think sometimes we go into it thinking like, I did this one meditation or I did this one thing and it didn't
work.
Right. So again, it's about changing some of the responses and reactions that we're having in our body. So really creating a different feedback loop for the body so that we're not stuck in that stress response over and over again.
So, speaking of feedback loops, maybe you can talk to this a little bit. I know I chat about this a fair bit with my clients where we have, it's much like a furnace. If your body's telling you to do one thing and then we get more feedback from our brain or from our physiology or from our breath, that we keep doing that thing and our body keeps feeding back and doing more of that thing. And we often find that with shallow breathing and anxiety, where we might just kind of notice that we're at our desk working on something or staring at the gram and like shallow breathing, and then we're like, I just feel kind of stressed, and then we start to have this weird shallow breathing when we notice that we start to feel stressed, and then we feel more stressed. Can you talk about how some of these things might disrupt that feedback loop?
Yeah, so I think, and I do this too with postures and different things, is that when we notice that we're doing it, then we just actively take the steps to correct it or to change it. I mean, the more that we choose to try and bring in some new techniques or some new things, they don't just take right away. It's not like we do it once and then we're just never going to shallow breathe again, right? Like it's constantly correcting our postures or our habits that we're doing until we maybe create some new ones. So again, it just allows the energy. So when we're doing tapping, okay, thank you. When we're doing tapping, it helps to move the energy. So when we're stressed or we're tense or we're tight and we're holding that energy in, or we're holding an emotion in, it's contracting into even our deepest cells, our deepest tissues. And so it sort of holds out there, right? So the energy and all of the processes aren't necessarily making a full completion. They're sort of, looping into that stress response. So certainly, I can find that sometimes my reactions are more about how I'm feeling than necessarily about what my kids are doing or what, my husband's doing or whatever. Right. So that's a good indication of knowing like, okay, I need to be mindful and add in some practices so that I can ground myself and sort of get a hold of some of those emotions so that I'm not acting out of old stress or old anger or something that's in there that's not really sort of coming to the, resurfacing, which I think for a lot of us in this situation, some old hurts or, abandonment things or like, all these sort of past traumas, everything's resurfacing, right? So some of that can really be helped that we're working through that with some of these mindful practices.
So we're talking about kind of energetically sticking the stick in the bicycle spokes to just stop that loop from happening. And I think you touched on something there, is having that awareness that we're starting to loop or we're starting to spin and engage in that habit that set of thoughts that is not super helpful anymore, and putting a pin in it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So there's lots that we can do on our own. And I mean, depending on some of the things that you might be dealing with, obviously guided sessions can be helpful because often on our own, we tend to not, we tend to skirt around some of the harder things that maybe we don't want to face or we don't want to do. So that's why guided sessions are important. I find, you might get to a point where you're doing some of these things on your own and they're really helpful, but there may be some underlying things that's why guided sessions can be so beneficial as well, to just help really get to sort of that bottom point of maybe what's triggering or what's there.
And I love guided sessions for that reason too. I mean, as a practitioner, I still get my own work done because it's almost like you're making a micro commitment to listen to that recording, or to go to see that practitioner, or to at least, book online with a Zoom call right now. So that you're a little bit more in it versus being like, I'm going to go back on Facebook right now, or, I'll just, sweep up the kitchen counter instead of doing this thing that's actually good for you.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, sometimes just having that person, and I mean, it's important to have somebody there to help sort of hold our hand through it. And sometimes, you need that little bit of security to know that it's safe, where you're going to some of the work that you need to do that's a little bit more painful or not as easy when you're ready to hit that point. But yeah, guided sessions are really important, but there is lots of things that we can do on our own as well that we can really be empowered with our own healing work as well. So
Oh, fantastic. One more thing I wanted to run by you, because I know if you are not on Falon's mailing list, and I'm sure she'll share with us how to get on that. She sends out these amazing emails regularly with specific essential oil recipes for things to put in your bath, and like really practical things that you can do when you're just not feeling it. And I love how you just like share these one-off recipes that you make. So I'll share a little story. We have been, renovating forever, as you know, Falon.
yeah.
And, we were putting in a second bathroom at our house, like when our baby girl was like 3 weeks old. So there's like constant banging and all this stuff. And throughout my entire pregnancy, I was not able to have a bath and a bathtub. And I kind of felt this grief of like, I just want a bath because all my things hurt. So we finally got a bathtub in, and it's this beautiful one with jets in it. And I was having this bath last night, and just waiting for my husband to bring little girl in because she needs her weekly bath or whatever. And I didn't put any bubble bath in. I maybe put some Epsom salts in because I didn't want a weird skin reaction. And I was just like, my phone is dead, so I'm not listening to any music, and here I am just sitting in my tub. And I think for many of us, certainly for me, if I'm sitting down to go do something that's good, we start to get like the brain worms, like the gremlins that are like, well, what are you doing? This is silly. Like, what about this? Like, oh, I should paint the ceiling. And we get all these thoughts that are not super conducive to our well-being, or we almost start to judge our own behavior about this. So 2 parts, like how do we get beyond that and quiet the brain worms? And 2, like, what does one do in a bath?
It's true. Yeah, I was just thinking when you were saying that, like, oh man, if I couldn't listen to music while I was in the bath, I was like, what would I be doing?
What do you do in the bath?
Yeah.
I mean, fill the blanks. So like, what do you do in the bath?
And yeah, I think it speaks to, we're all sort of entering into this a little bit of uncomfortability of like not fully knowing what to do. But yeah, I mean, bringing in some of these techniques, trying something, new, or just even allowing yourself to let the thoughts go through your mind and then go like, oh, interesting that I have this point of view, or, interesting thought as it sort of goes by. Sometimes holding your head. So, even when we have like a headache, our natural response, so we sort of hold the spot. So if you find yourself, your mind is just kind of wandering off. So even just holding and allowing yourself to just hold that spot, allow the blood flow to come, the circulation to resume. Sometimes that is enough to even quiet the mind as well. But it is interesting of just being in an uncomfortable spot with yourself. It's sort of like, for some, going out for a meal on their own, right? If you've never done that before, of just sitting in sort of an awkward space is okay too.
Without your phone.
Yeah, without your phone.
So yeah, back to the bath question.
Mm-hmm.
I know when you're eating on your own, I tell all my patients, like, you need to chew your food. You need to chew it until it is liquid. If you need to count 20 chews per bite of food, what do you do in the bath apart from wash? Like,
yeah, just sort of hang out. Again, just give yourself a little bit of space, I think.
All right. And then apparently crown pull and tap and bump your thymus. This is great. I love it.
Yeah.
So a couple more quick questions for you. I know you're a huge fan of essential oils, and I love that you are not necessarily pushing one brand or another. You're stranded on a desert island, and you can only pick 3 essential oils for whatever purpose you deem necessary. Which ones would you pick and why?
Yeah. So my answer would, I think back to even like my journey, obviously, or even different times of the year, I would probably say different oils. Probably my first true love is frankincense. And I love frankincense because it's grounding. There's a spiritual component to it. And it's a very versatile oil, so great for skin. I find it just a really soothing oil as well. So it's probably my top choice. Um, but strong, so it gives you, a little bit extra sort of standing, a little bit more posture, gives you a little bit a more centering, grounding oil. So those would probably be my three.
I love that they are not the most common popular ones that most people would get. That is amazing.
Yeah, I think through working with clients too, the popular ones like lavender, there's so much synthetic on the market that I find for a lot of people, it's hard for them to actually, for a lot to actually use lavender because they have a memory to synthetic. So a lot of people go like, "Ooh, I hate lavender," and it's because they've been exposed to so much synthetic that they're, even if they smell a true lavender, it takes them a long time to get over that.
So they
So
get into like an olfactory loop.
that's right. Yeah, you have memory, right? So your limbic system, that's where our memories are stored. That's why, there's certain smells that trigger so much emotion and so much memory, good or bad, that so for a lot of us, smells that can be a really great way actually to train, like sort of transform your space. Certainly for now in this situation where we're spending so much more time at home for some of us,
Mm-hmm.
that using a diffuser or using aromatics can be a really great way of, certainly if you're having a low mood, diffusing it and using it aromatically can really help give you a little bit of a boost. So
I love it. So you've given us like 4 really practical sets of things that we can do if we're feeling anxious or overwhelmed or just frustrated or just
yeah.
kind of blah. Is there any other must-have thing that you find really helpful with your clients that would be helpful in this strange climate too?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is just doing it. So, we talk about it and we might, research it or we might watch a video, but you have to do it. So you have to just put it into use and try out a few different things. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to catapult you into this like euphoric state all the time. So they're tools there that you
Yeah,
just
we
have
call
to.
that mania when you're euphoric all the time.
Yeah, right, like it's just not, I think, sometimes, and we look, and especially on social media where people are posting a lot of their highlights of their life, it's not a really good look at how their full day is going, right? We're not sharing some of the, you know the not great parts. So yeah, it's really important that you're putting these tools, whatever works for you, into practice. So
Awesome.
yeah.
So before we wrap up, because I know you've got a lot on the go, and the time is ticking till my cat bursts into the room, and all of those things. Tell us in brief, kind of your go-to self-care rituals. Like, what is like a
Yeah.
crazy day look like for you? What are like the things that you will do to just?
Yeah, so for me, I'm really lucky. I live in the country, so we have our own forest, so I can go and nature bathe, and that's definitely one of my go-to things. So sometimes even first thing in the morning, like if I can get even like a 15 or 20-minute walk in nature, that is definitely my go-to. It's calming, a little bit of activity. So I try and get at least one or two alone walks, because it's great to go out with the kids, but when I need to do a little stress relieving, that's my self-care, is that I need a little time to myself every now and again. And one of my other favorite things is definitely taking a bath. So I like to use an Epsom salt bath and use aromatherapy and herbs. And so I doctor up. So I don't just have, I throw a little bit of Epsom salts in. I like to make it, a little bit more of a ritual.
Like a
And
potion in your
about,
bathtub, Fallon.
what's that?
Like a potion in your bathtub.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. So to me, that's my, sort of, top self-care. And then, yeah, I definitely tap, maybe not a full sequence. I maybe don't add in some of the statements or the clearing statements. But I definitely am tapping periodically through the day. But yeah, that's kind of how it looks. And again, every day is a little bit different. I've got 3 kids, so some days go a little bit smoother than others. And yeah, so some days if we've had a rough day and if everyone's emotions have just been running high, then, you know, the next day or whenever we can, you know, we try and be a little bit more intentional about adding in some movement or some practices that are gonna help regulate all of our emotions.
Awesome. Well, I know you have, oh, what we're not seeing here is a very hairy beast just trying to destroy my computer. um, I know you could go on, because you're just such a wealth of wisdom in this area. Go away, kitty. What is something really badass about you that not many people would know?
Well, I guess so. For most of my adult life, I actually worked for my parents in construction manufacturing. So I ordered steel for about over 12 years. I did procurement and logistics. And so my life now is quite different from what it was then. So I think, yeah, people would be surprised to know that I ordered steel for a living for so long.
And
Um,
internationally too, right?
Yes, yeah. So when I first started, we were exporting to Algeria. So yeah, it it is very different. My line of work now, and being a mom and sort of doing all of that. But yeah, I think that would be something that um, not many people would know or realize based on what I do now.
Amazing. So all these things that you're talking about, it's not about having this like perfect, fluffy, amorphous life where you can just, you know, go out into the woods and do the things as it calls you. It's inherently practical is what I've learned from getting to know you over the last several months. Huh?
Yes, and you know, sometimes you have to take the win where you get it. It may not sort of look totally how or be hours of self-care on end. It could literally be, you know, 5 or 10 minutes at a time. And but using those regularly, they do add up to a lot throughout the day. So you can still have some highs and lows. And certainly as we're navigating this, you know, different situation, yeah, you know, you may feel like some of those big emotions, they come in waves, right? So it's, yeah, having some tools to be able to handle them as they come.
Amazing. For any of you that are listening, if you have any questions, we are happy to field them for a couple minutes. But Falon, this has been wonderful. I know I've wanted to get you on a call for a long while. This cat is just everywhere right now. Because everything you do, I find, is just so practical, and I'm amazed at the amount of things that you were able to do while still being so calm and chill and centered, at least from what I've seen getting to know you, Falon.
I have my moments too, but yes, yeah, just yeah, I think just trying to work what it is that I know, and like I, you know, things do change. Like as my kids have gotten older, you know, obviously some of the practices are, you know, they come in, you're able to do things a little bit differently than when you have wee ones.
Amazing. All right. Any questions from anyone that is listening live at the moment? Did we answer some of your questions as we did? Was Falon just that great? I think so. Yeah, so I love it. So just to round off, you had talked about bathing, of course, making a potion, the crown clearing, the tapping at several points with both hands or one hand, the cross body, going outside in the woods. If we don't have access to woods, research is showing that something as simple as having a plant in your space can help to lift your mood. Thank you so much to both of you for organizing this. Thank you so much for attending, Olia. It's wonderful to have you. Are you out in California, Olia? This is wonderful. And was there something else that I'm missing? You mentioned essential oils.
Yeah, so I do have a YouTube channel with a few of these videos broken out so they can go and see what EFT looks like again, some of the energy medicine. And then, of course, if you go to my website and sign up for my online mailing list, then I've got, again, you'll get all of the recipes and stuff right to your inbox. So,
Amazing. So how would we find your YouTube channel?
so just search Nested Holistic and it'll come up, or on my website, there'll be a link to the YouTube channel.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, Falon. It's an absolute joy and a pleasure to have you. We're lucky we've got one creature that stayed asleep and one that didn't make her hairy debut on screen. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to have you as always. And thank you for spending your afternoon with us. For a couple of you that are attending live, we will make sure to post this on YouTube and on Facebook a little bit later on. And I'd so appreciate sharing with your friends. We are trying to help all kinds of people figure it the heck out as we're navigating these strange times together, and try to be valuable and of service as we are all hanging out individually in our homes, trying to make the world a little bit better of a place as we figure it the heck out.
Awesome. Yes. Oh, I miss seeing you guys in the office, but I'm glad that we could connect.
Absolutely. All right, that's it for us. We're gonna end this now, and thank you so much for your time.
All right. See you, Keela.